Hello viewers and welcome to yet another Warhammer 40,000 Conquest video production. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today, I'm pleased to present you with a reading of the first installment of our Planetfall cycle narrative, Preparing for War. This is the story insert included within the Warpack Decree of Ruin, and is the first of a series of short stories which together construct a background narrative for Conquest LCG. So, be sure to let me know in the comments what you think of the first chapter of our story, and do share your preliminary assessment and initial impressions of our overarching plot. But, with our premise aside, let's begin with Preparing for War. We die for the greater good! The wild-eyed man leveled a Xenotech rifle at the advancing squad of Astra Militarum soldiers. A dozen more men and women, armed with autoguns, lasgun, and exotic Tau weaponry, took aim and opened fire. With trained military efficiency, the soldiers scattered, taking cover behind the hulls of their rumbling Chimera transports. Weapons fire snapped and hissed as it deflected off the armored hull of the vehicle. The commissar in command of the Astra Militarum force shouted a series of orders over the thunder of gunfire, and when the storm abated, the guardsmen and their commander returned fire. Broderick War was no stranger to killing traitors. He had served the Emperor's officio prefectus for these past 6 decades, and in that time, traitors, cowards, and tyrants had all earned the Emperor's justice. Traitors like this, though, filled his heart with righteous fury. To think that soldiers in the Astra Militarum, men and women sworn to fight and die for the Emperor, could be turned to heretical treason by honeyed lies and false promises, that the Tau, beings who blasphemed the glorious imperium of man by their very existence, could turn faithful servants of his armies against their own kind, sickened the commissar. Such faithlessness could not stand, and such treachery and deception must be rooted out and eradicated. Even if he would have to kill every traitor swine himself, he would do so. As his blood boiled, Broderick motioned his Astra Militarum strike force to advance. War had known that the Tau had a foothold here on Sakhalem, but he had not expected their influence to spread so quickly among the human population. He now faced a small army of those who had once been the Emperor's faithful servants. Leading them from the front lines was a fanatical warrior, once an officer in the Astra Militarum, now dishonoring his imperial flak armor with ornaments and augmentations of Tau technology, and firing on his own kind with weapons gifted to him by his new Tau allies. As the commissar leveled his bolt pistol at the traitor officer, he was pulled bodily behind the track of the Chimera transport. Broderick twisted his head back to see what had grabbed him, and saw his Vox operator behind him, aiming his lasgun into the air. With a deafening roar of firing retro thrusters, 3 massive forms dropped to the ground where War had been standing only moments before. With one fluid motion, the lead battlesuit raised its right arm and unleashed a superheated torrent of energy into the Chimera, slagging the armored plating and cutting deep into the engine housing. With a shriek of torn metal and the thud of a contained internal explosion, the transport shuddered to a halt. The Tau had joined the fight alongside their human auxiliaries. Broderick and his Vox operator scrambled to put the bulk of the Chimera between themselves and the Crisis battlesuit team. As he rolled, he saw that his officers were already directing the fire of the troops to the new imminent threat. The weight of their las fire and the intermittent blasts of crack grenades were enough to drive the Crisis suits back on their heels. With another blast of their repulsor jets, the suits took flight out of the line of fire, their burst cannons laying down suppressing fire to cover their redeployment. "Sir, sir!" the Vox operator yelled as War leapt to his feet, snapping a trio of shots with his bolt pistol at the retreating Tau warriors. "Orbital Command is reporting a massive object making warp translation beyond Sir Calem's atmosphere." He clutched the Vox unit to his augmetic oral receptor a moment later. "It's on a collision course! Emperor, protect us!" War looked upward, where a wash of bloody crimson engulfed the sky. Tendrils of malevolent energy lashed the heavens, and at its heart, a searing ember burned, lit by the heat of atmospheric re-entry. As the object streaked overhead, leaving a raw wound in the fabric of reality in its wake, its true size became clear. It was no meteor, no hurtling mass of debris. It was a vessel, many vessels, void ships, mutated and fused together by the twisting energies of the warp. It dwarfed cities, rivaled moons, and it eclipsed the very sun, and it was falling like a star from the heavens to shatter this world. The air filled with screeching as the massive object collided with a mountain range behind enemy lines, letting forth an explosion that tore the peaks from their roots and sent chunks of molten rock and metal flying in all directions. The ground trembled and cracked beneath Broderick's feet, while a shockwave broke across the battlefield, sending guardsmen, traitors, and ruined tanks rolling in a cloud of dust and debris. Broderick held fast behind the Chimera, using it to shield himself from the debris just as he had from the weapon's fire earlier. The war zone fell silent as the shockwave passed, soldiers on both sides fixated by the mountain on fire and metal that had replaced the one of stone that had stood there moments before. Broderick looked around at his remaining troops and knew that this battle was finished, yet an even greater war had just begun. So, there you have it. That was Preparing for War, the first chapter in the overall Planetfall cycle narrative. What did you think about the story and our overall plot thus far? And what would you like to see done with future narrative elements for Conquest LCG? Be sure to let me know in the comments, but as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, do consider sharing this content, as the more people end up being exposed to this game, the more people may give Conquest a try, they may like what they experience, join our community, and of course, all together we continue to send a greater message to Fantasy Flight Games to continue to develop and experiment with this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to do so through Twitter or on Facebook, and of course, if at any point you feel so inclined to help cover some of my file hosting and operating expenses, I would be absolutely honored were you to make a contribution to my Patreon. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for ever more Conquest LCG content to come.